ولا تعجل بالقرآن من قبل أن يقضى إليك وحيه وقل رب زدني علما.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا الكريم محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. أعاذني الله وإياكم من النار. ثم أيها الإخوة الكرام, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, as how He Jalla wa ala deserve it, and then we send our salat and our salam upon the best of mankind, our Nabi, our Prophet Muhammad, and upon his families and his companions and those that are upon their way. And after that, we continue on with our weekly sittings, which regards to the book 𝔸𝕃-𝔸𝔸𝔸𝕀𝔻 min 𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸𝔸 of the messengers sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a beneficial book authored and collected by Al-Hafiz An-Nawawi Yahya ibn Sharaf rahimahullah ta'ala. And as how he had said, we will skip a couple of chapters all the way to the chapter number 271, where we will talk about the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he said, "Iyyakum adh-dhann, fa inna adh-dhanna akdhabul hadith." Beware of suspicions, for indeed suspicions are the worst of false tales. Al-Hadith, all the way to the end of the Hadith with its different narrations. And from the start, we had talked about that this Hadith contains many prohibitions, many acts that are prohibited by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we had also mentioned that with every act that is prohibited by the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it will mean that it is a commandment of the opposite. It is a commandment of the opposite of that act. And from the start, the very first act or the very first trait that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbade in this hadith is the trait of having suspicions. Having suspicions. And the characteristic and the trait that we are commanded with, that is the opposite of it, is to have husnul dhann, good thoughts of others. And the second trait that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbade is the act of at-tahassus, which is being inquisitive of the things that are of no benefits to us, and to inquire about things that are of no benefit to a person. And the trait, the opposite trait that we are commanded with is to leave the things that are of no concern to us, to leave off the things that are of no concern to us, and to only dwell into the things that are of your concern. Other than that, if it's not from your concern, you are supposed to leave that thing off. That's how it appeared in hadith, min husnil islamil mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'nihi. From the excellence of a person's Islam is to leave off that which do not concern him. And we had read through the statement and the words of the Shaykh al-Islam of this era, that is Shaykh Abdul Aziz Ibn Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, in the effect, about the effect of a person dwelling into the things that do not concern him. And he had mentioned some harms if a person does that, and so if a person had missed that out, it is advised and it is encouraged to return back to that lesson where we had read the statement of Shaykh Abdul Aziz Ibn Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, the Mufti of Saudi Arabia before the current Mufti. The third trait that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbade in this hadith is the act of at-tajassus, which is spying on one another, to spy on one another, to expose the sins of others, the mistakes of others, where this mistake had been done behind or without the knowledge of the public. It is being done in silence, in secrecy. But a person came to know about it, and then he what? He exposed it. This is the act of spying on one another, and it is not allowed. It's not allowed in Islam. As for the trait that is the opposite of it, that we are commanded with, then it is the act of covering the faults of others. Covering the faults of others. If a mistake had happened from a friend of ours, a brother of ours, and it is a mistake that had been done behind closed doors, without the knowledge of the public, then upon us is to cover his faults. And at the same time, again and again, we emphasize that there is a difference between not exposing one's sins and faults with rectifying the mistake. Not exposing a person's fault, not exposing him does not mean that we keep quiet about his mistakes. Rather, his mistakes, we should sit one-on-one with him in privacy, in secrecy, and talk to him about this mistake and rectify the mistake and explain to him how is it a mistake, why is it a mistake, how to rectify the mistake, what is the proper way, what is the correct way that is supposed to be done in Islam, in secrecy and in privacy, as how he had done that mistake. So rectifying the mistake is still a must. But what is prohibited for us to do is to expose his mistake. It was done in secrecy, in privacy, and we tell the people that so and so is doing that mistake, doing that sin, exposing his faults. Na'am, barakallahu fikum. This is not allowed, but we are still commanded to rectify the matter also in secrecy. And again, also it is about the mistake and the faults that are done without the public's knowledge. If it's already out there, then we are not exposing anything. We are rectifying it in open as how it was done in open as well. So the one who exposed himself is the wrongdoer and not the one that is talking about the mistake in open. Understand the difference? طيب. And then number one, the fourth trait that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbade in this hadith is the trait of at-tanajush, making at-tanajush. And we had explained what is at-tanajush. At-tanajush is the act of raising the price of an item without the intention of buying it. It's the act of raising the price of an item without the intention of buying it, and this is prohibited because it harms the How many type? It also harms the what? The buyer. It harms the buyer because the buyer needs to fork out more money. So it harms the buyer in the buying and selling. It also nurture hatred. It nurture animosity. It nurture disagreements between the community and such. And therefore, Islam takes care of this side of the human being's life as well, which is the side of buying and selling, because it involves interactions, it involves mu'amalat, interactions between the people. And when people interact with one another, wrong understanding, misunderstandings, arguments are bound to happen. Yet Islam, barakallahu fikum, takes care about it, and it avoids all types of misunderstandings that might happen, and therefore Islam forbids this type of buying and selling. And also we had said that it is a form of a lie, a dishonesty and a lie. And dishonesty and lying in buying and selling, in trading, is also not allowed. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, "Man ghasha falaysa minni." Whoever lies, whoever cheats, whoever acts dishonestly is not from me. It's not from me. And the next trade that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbade is the trade of al-hasad, which we had stopped with it. And so this is trade number 5, the 5th trade that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbade in this hadith with its different narrations, the trade of al-hasad. And take note, all of the trade that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbade in this hadith are the trades that will harm a community, are the trades that will make a community not being together. These trades foster hatred. These trades foster argumentations. It divides the ranks of the communities. Naam. And we are commanded with the opposite of it, correct? So the traits that we are commanded with are all the traits that are going to help to unite the communities. They are all the traits that are going to harbor love and nurture togetherness between the communities. Wadah? So the 5th trait that we had already started with is the trait of al-hasad. Al-hasad, many have talked about its meaning and its definition, and all of them return back to a person hating that another person who is blessed with some favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he hates that person having that blessing. He cannot accept that this person is being blessed with that blessing. And he hoped that this blessing upon that another person will be transferred to him. This blessing will be transferred to him, meaning he will receive that blessing instead of that person. Or he does not think about that blessing being transferred to him. He just wants that blessing to not be with that person. He is wanting that person to be voided of the blessings that have been blessed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, a person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed him with wealth. He has a lot of cash, he has a lot of money, a big house. And a person who has envy, he talks to himself by saying that this wealth that has been blessed upon this person, he hopes that it will be his instead of that person. The house that that person had bought, he wishes that it is supposed to be his. And that person is not blessed with any wealth, is not blessed with any house, and so on. He wants that person's blessings. He wants that person blessings, and he wants that person to not be blessed with any of those things. Or he doesn't want that house and that wealth to be transferred to him, but he instead just want that person to not have these things. He does not want that person to have a big house. It hurts him that this person has a big house. It hurts him mentally and sometimes even physically that this person has a lot of wealth. He just wants that person to be voided out of everything, even if he does not receive any one of those things. This is called having what? Al-Hasad. This is called having envy, being envious of another person. And this trait is not allowed in Islam, as how we had mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Iman, faith, and Al-Hasad do not come together in a single person. It is collected in Sunan An-Nasa'i that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and this is in the authority or to the authority of the great companion Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he said, "Wala yajtami'ani fi qalbi 'abdin al-iman wal-hasad." And two things will never be gathered in the heart of a person, of a slave. Two things will never be together in the heart of a slave, of a servant, of a person. Al-imanu wal-hasad. Iman and al-hasad. A person will either has iman or a person will have what? Hasad. He will never have iman and hasad at once in a person. Because why? In the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said, "Min husni la yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibba li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi." A person will not attain the complete iman until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. This is iman. He loves that, as how he loves that he becomes rich and wealthy, he loves that his brother becomes rich and wealthy as well. This is what? Iman. But what is hasad? Hasad is that he doesn't want his brother to have all of that blessing. Rather, he wants that blessing to be transferred to him, or it's okay that he doesn't have any of that blessing, but just that this brother do not have any of that blessing. So isn't that something that contradicts with one another? A person who has iman will never have hasad. A person who has hasad will not have iman, because there are two actions and there are two feelings that contradict with each other. Wadah? Clear? And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded us all to seek refuge in Him from having the sifat of al-hasad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Falaq, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. And seek refuge in Allah from the one who envies when he envy. Not only are we not commanded to have hasad, we are commanded to seek refuge in hasad. What is seeking refuge? Seeking refuge is to seek for protection. What is seeking refuge? Seeking refuge is to seek protection. You are supposed to seek any form of protection for yourself, so as to not have this sifat of what? Al-hasad. And from the very best of the forms of protection is to seek refuge in Allah. That you seek in Allah to protect you from having this sifat, this dirty trait that is al-hasad. And if Allah is your protector, then what is there to fear? And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your protector, then what is there to fear? Also, it is collected in Sahih al-Imam Muslim rahimahullah that Jibril alayhi salam would supplicate with this supplication whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would fall ill. The mother of the believers and the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that is Aisha radiallahu anha, narrated that كان إذا اشتكى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رقاه جبريل. When Allah's messenger falls or fell ill, Jibril alayhi salam used to recite this dua. قال بسم الله يبريك ومن كل داء يشفيك ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد وشر كل ذي عين. In the name of Allah, may He cure you from all kinds of illnesses and safeguard you from the evil of the one who envies when he feels envious, and from the evil influence of the eye, of an eye. So, Jibril alayhi salam used to recite this dua whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would fall ill, would fall sick, and in it is seeking refuge in Allah from the evil of the one who envies when he feels envious. So this is what al-hasad, the dirty trait of al-hasad, again, is to hope that the blessing of others to be transferred to himself, or that that person do not have any of that blessing at all, even if it was not transferred to him. And from these verses and this hadith, it is certain for every Muslim who is upon the lights of Allah that it is not allowed to be envious of others in the things that Allah had opened up for them and blessed them with. Next is, if a person says, if being envious is not allowed at any time or at any situation, then what about the saying of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said, there is no hasad except in two situations? Understand this question? There is a hadith. This is pointing to the hadith that is collected in both Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih al-Imam Muslim. And this narration is the narration of the one in Sahih al-Imam Muslim to the great companion Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. The Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, La hasada illa fitnatain. There is no envy, there is no hasad except in two cases. There is no hasad except in two cases. رجل أتاه الله القرآن فهو يقوم به آناء الليل وآناء النهار. First case is the one who have been given the Quran by Allah, and this person, he recites it during the day and the night, and he also acts upon them, upon the Quran, upon the Quran. وَرَجُلٌ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ مَالًا فَهُوَ يُنْفِقُهُ آنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ وَآنَاءَ النَّهَارِ. The second case is for a person who have been given wealth by Allah, and this person, he spends it during the day and night in the cause of Allah. This is the narration of whom? Al-Imam Muslim. And in the narration of Sahih al-Bukhari, to the great companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, La hasada illa fitnatain. There is no hasad except in two cases. رجل آتاه الله مالا فيسلط على هلكته في الحق. The case of a man whom Allah has given wealth and he spends it in truth. وآخر آتاه الله حكمة فهو يقضي بها ويعلمها. And that of a man, the second one, whom Allah has given religious wisdom and he gives his verdicts according to the wisdom, and he teaches according to the wisdom. And he teaches the wisdom. And he teaches the wisdom. So, in Sahih Muslim, two people, it regards to the Quran and wealth. Correct? And in Muslim, it regards to the wealth and wisdom. So in total, there are how many? Three. Three things. Three things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that it is allowed. And being envious in these three things is allowed. Understand? But we said just now, the trait of being envious is not allowed at any point of time. Being envious is not allowed at any point of time for a Muslim. This is what we have said just now, correct? But here, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there are exceptions for three cases. So, if a person were to come and say, here, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave an exception. How can you say that being envious is not allowed at all? How can you say that being envious is not allowed at any point of time for a Muslim? When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself gave an exception. Do you understand the question? Understand it? Are there exceptions to when the trait of being envy is permissible to a Muslim? Then the answer is still no. The answer is still no. There is still no exception at all for the dirty trait of being envious. The dirty trait of al-hasad. Al-hasad is a trait not of a Muslim, not of a mu'min. We had said just now that al-hasad and iman will never be together in a person, am I right? Iman is iman, hasad is hasad, and they are two things that contradict with each other. How can two things that contradict with each other be together? So the answer is still what? No. It is still not allowed. And it is still impermissible all of the time due to the reasons mentioned a while ago. As for the word al-hasad in these few hadith that shows an exception, then the word al-hasad actually means al-ghibtah. Al-ghibtah. Alif lam ghain ba ta and the ta marbuta. Al-ghibtah. And here the term hasad is used by the Prophet in the chapter of Al-Ghalabah. In the chapter of Al-Ghalabah, that is what it is widely used and understood as. Al-Ghibtah is what it actually means, not Al-Hasad. But Al-Hasad is used because maybe at that point of time, a lot of people will understand Al-Hasad more than the word Al-Ghibtah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instead used the word Al-Hasad, but he meant Al-Ghibtah. Understand? Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Ahmad ibn Ali rahimahullah ta'ala said in his book Fathul Bari, وَأَمَّا الْحَسَدُ الْمَذْكُورُ فِي الْحَدِيثِ فَهُوَ الْغِبْطَةِ. As for the term Al-Hasad mentioned in the hadith, then it is actually Al-Ghibtah. وَأَطْلَقَ الْحَسَدَ عَلَيْهَا مَجَازًا. And the word Al-Hasad is used instead as a figure of speech. وَهِيَ أَنْ يَتَمَنَّى أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُ مِثْلَ مَا لِغَيْرِهِ مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يَزُولَ عَنْهُ. What is Al-Ghibtah? Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he said, and Al-Ghibtah is to hope for himself to receive the same as what the other is given without wanting the blessing to be removed from the others. Again, Al-Ghibtah is to hope for himself to receive the same as what the other is given without wanting the blessing to be removed from the other. وَالْحِرْص عَلَى هَذَا يُسَمَّى مُنَافَسَةً. He then said, and being keen on this is named as a competition, منافسة. فَكَأَنَّهُ قَالَ فِي الْحَدِيثِ. It is as though he, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is saying in the hadith, لا غبطة أعظم أو أفضل من الغبطة في هذين الأمرين. It is as though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying in the hadith, there is no ghibtah more greater or more better than in these two matters. End of Ibn Hajar's words. So, we process what he is trying to say, or what the ulama are trying to say. Al-hasad is to hope that the blessing is to be transferred to himself and that it is removed from the others. The main thing is that that person, the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had been blessed with, that he has been blessed with from Allah, is no longer with him, removed from him. If he is wealthy, it means that he has no more of that wealth. If he has a big house, it means that he has no more of that house. If he has a car, it means that he has no more of that car. If he has a pious wife, then he has no more of that pious wife. This is what? Envy, hasad. As for ghibtah, what is ghibtah? Ghibtah is to hope that you have the same of what that person have without wanting that person to be decreased in any of that blessing at all. Means that he just wants the same as what the person has been blessed with. And he hopes that that person still have that blessing as well. This is what? Al-ghibtah. This is al-ghibtah. In summary, again, being envious, that is to hope that the blessing of others will be removed, or whether or not to be transferred to himself or not, is not allowed at any point of time. As for to hope that he is given the same blessings as others, without wanting the blessings to be removed from them, then this is allowed. This is allowed in Islam, because this is called al-ghibtah. He is allowed because this is al-ghibtah. If a person wishes to do the same or more than what the others are doing, as how it is mentioned in the hadith, then this is allowed because this is al-ghibtah. Meaning, for example, this person A is being blessed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is being blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a lot of wealth. And not just that he is being blessed with a lot of wealth, this person, he uses the wealth in the cause of Allah. And one of the examples and one of the mithal example is like the kings of Saudi Arabia. They are being given and blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have a lot of wealth. And they uses this wealth for the sake of the Muslims. They used the wealth for the sake of the Muslims. That's how it appeared in some of the books of history that I believe is Al-Malik Khalid, rahimahullah ta'ala, the King Khalid, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was given as a present the marble stone. You know marble stone? Very expensive or not expensive? It was being given to him by another country as a present, as a gift for his house, to be made inside his house. And you know the marble stone is a stone where it does not it does not trap heat. So even if it's hot, a person when he steps upon it is still cool. And Malik Khalid rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, not until it is being placed in the house of Allah. Not until it is being placed in the house of Allah. That is what? In where? Mecca. If any of you have been to Mecca, then you will see that the place where they make the tawaf is with which stone? The marble stone. And it's a huge help, a big help to the Muslims. Because Mecca is where? Is Mecca in the middle of the snow? Where is Mecca? The middle of the desert. Imagine how hot it is to make and to perform the tawaf on sands and whatsoever. But the Malik, the king, rahimahullah ta'ala, may Allah mercy be upon him, he placed and he used the stone for the whole of Masjid al-Haram. The whole of Masjid al-Haram is what? Covered with the marble stone. In service of the Muslims. In service of the Muslims, and putting up quotas, reducing the toll of death in what? In Hajj. All of that, he uses it in the service of the Muslims. So this person who is being blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with wealth, he is using it for the sake of the Muslims, in truth, for the sake of for Allah's cause. And another person, he wished that he have the same as that person A, or more even. I hope that I have the same amount of wealth being given to me as how it was being given to him, or more. Not just that, but he hoped to do the same as well. He hoped that he will be spending it in Allah's cause as well, as how that person had spent it in the cause of Allah. This is hasad or no? This is not hasad. This is what? This is ghibtah. This is iman. This is faith. Naam. And there's nothing wrong to have al-ghibtah. In fact, as how Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala said, to race amongst the other one another in this cause is a competition that is healthy between the Muslims. You have that money and you spend in that cause. I want to have that money also, and I want to spend in the cause of Allah more than you. So it is a what? A healthy competition. It does not foster or it does not nurture any type of hatred. Rather, it nurtures love, it nurtures goodness and such. Wadah? So, if we are prohibited from having al-hasad, we are prohibited to have al-hasad, what is the opposite of it that we are being commanded with? What is the trait that will nurture love and harmony in the communities that is the opposite of envying? What is it? Is wanting goodness. The trait of wanting goodness for others. If everyone have this type of trait, to want goodness for everyone else in the community, wouldn't that community be a community of love? Wouldn't that community be a healthy community that is harmonious with one another? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again said in the hadith, "La yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibba li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi." None of you will attain the complete and full iman until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And the ulama said that the mafhumu mukhalafa, the opposite understanding is that a person should hate for others what he hates for himself as well. He should hate for the others what he hates for himself as well. So the trait that we are commanded with is the trait of wanting goodness for the others. Also in the hadith, that if a person were to make supplication for his brother in secrecy, then the malaika will say what? Amin walaka mithluhu. Oh Allah, answer, and for you likewise. For you the same. Naam. And what is better, for you to make dua for yourself or the malaika to make the dua for you? Which is better? You who is covered with sins and faults, or the malaika who is pure? to make supplication to Allah without a doubt if the malaika makes the supplication for you. We will continue after the adhan, insyaAllah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Allah. Allahu Akbar, Allah. So this is the trait number 5. This is trait number 5 that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had forbid, which is the trait of al-hasad. And al-hasad is a trait that is not allowed for a Muslim to have at any point of time. All of al-hasad is madhmoom. All of al-hasad is disliked and looked down. And the one that is allowed is called al-ghibṭah, and we had explained the difference between these two. And therefore, also we had also said that the opposite trait that we are being commanded with is the trait of what? Wanting goodness for others, as how a person wants goodness for himself. So this is trait number 5, and we will continue with the other traits that have been prohibited and that are being commanded with in the next lessons, insyaAllah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.